If you have big dreams and big vision, it takes a level of brutalness to get there. The person who wins is the person who fights the best. All my goals and ambitions just don't matter at all unless I do the work. I think the older we get, the more we get cemented into our identity of who we are and who we're not. Who do I want to be in the future? What does that person have to be good at? The fastest way to become a billionaire is just you can focus so strongly on building wealth and money and miss out on the things that actually matter.
Why did you leave BiggerPockets?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Welcome, friends. Today we're doing a little bit something different. How the turntables. Not Brandon Turner, am your host of today's show, Alex Felice, the producer of the show. That's why it's so great. And I'm going to be interviewing our good friend, Brandon. What else did you want me to say?
That's it.
That was it. Get ready. Brandon Turner.
Wow, that was really loud.
That was loud. Sorry.
Am I that loud?
Wait, no. Brandon Turner.
That was still loud.
I know you as
All right.
a prolific podcaster, previous host of the BetterLife of the BiggerPockets podcast, host sometimes of the Better Life with Brandon Turner podcast,
A Better Life with Brandon Turner.
founder
Maybe name changing.
of Open Door Capital,
Keep going.
a $900+ million real estate company,
980, baby.
founder of the BetterLife Tribe, a private community of real estate investors whose mission is to give away 100% of charity away to fight human trafficking. You live full-time in Maui. You wrote 5 best-selling books. Dad to Wilder and Rosie. Husband to Heather, the second best baker on the island. And a wild egomaniac who I know is loving being in the limelight today.
Love this. Love it.
But before all that, as we all know about you, who was Brandon Turner?
I ask this question all the time. Where do I start? I am a Minnesota boy who is going to be a lawyer because I got a degree in history, and that's the only thing you can do with a degree in history is teach history or be a lawyer. And then I got too afraid to submit my law school application, so I never did. I took the test, did well, and then I got too afraid of rejection to actually apply.
I'm glad that that's not an ongoing theme in your life.
Not at all. I've never been afraid of rejection or hard conversations whatsoever. No, I love these.
So so what'd you do instead?
All right, so the story was I was going to go to law school, decided that law school, I actually read John Grisham's book, The Firm. Have you read that one?
I have not.
Okay, like the Tom Cruise movie. They made a movie about it. Anyway, in that book, it's a fiction book, but he rips on lawyers the whole time about how they work like 100 hours a week, and then if you work till you're 70, you'll have like 4 wives by the time you get there, and everyone will hate you and you'll die alone. It's like the trope he does in every one of his lawyer books. It's like it's just terrible being a lawyer because John Grisham was a lawyer for a while. And
I've never met a happy lawyer.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Every time I tell that story to a lawyer, because I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to go to law school. Every time they're like, oh, you made the right choice. I've never had a lawyer being like, oh man, you would have liked it. Like never once.
I've never met a happy lawyer.
Yeah. Actually, I met a woman once called, it was a Happy Lawyer Project. I think that's even her Instagram, the Happy Lawyer Project. And she became a happy lawyer when she quit.
She's working on it when she quit.
Yeah.
What's the project? Get people to quit?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, it was. I decided at the same time I read John Grisham's book, and I bought a house, and that house made me like 20 grand. I sold it, and I made 20 grand on it, and I was like, that's as much as like entry year lawyers might make, after taxes and all that. I'm like, that sounds much better.
Feedback mechanisms. Money is a good feedback mechanism.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was this?
06-ish.
So you avoid the lawyer path. You buy a house. You make a little money. And then I know your story pretty well. You go head first into real estate from there. Were you like hooked right on that one house? Or?
I was obsessed. I went to the library and I got 100 books on real estate. 100 books, and I like not at one time. Like, over the course of a summer, I'd get like 10. I'd read them all that week, and I'd go back and get 10 more. So I read 100 books on real estate investing, everything I can get my hands on. 2 that I still remember. I mean, I read a lot of them, but 2 that really made an impact on me. One was called $1 Million by 30. By a guy named Alan Corey, who's actually still in the real estate world today. I still actually follow him on Twitter and Instagram, and he's kind of a buddy. He's been on BiggerPockets, and he's a good dude. Alan Corey's $1 Million by 30, because it made me realize like a person could actually retire by 30. Blew my mind. Mm-hmm. And this is long before 4-Hour Workweek came out. And the unofficial guide to real estate investing. It's like the unofficial guide is kind of like the idiot's guide or the dummies thing. It's like one of those series.
I think I've read that.
Yeah, the unofficial guide to real estate investing. It was phenomenal. It's by Spencer Strauss and Martin Stone, I think. Anyway, those 2 books made such an impact on me out of the 100, and it made me realize that real estate was for me.
And then, so you started a blog.
I started a blog after a few years. I mean, we're jumping forward, which is good because there's a long, boring story. But I started buying real estate, bought a bunch, ended up with 30 units, realized I could quit my job. I took a short stint at a bank.
I love you as a banker. I love you as a banker. Yeah, I love this.
I had to wear shoes.
How long did it take you to get 30 units?
7 years. 20 was I bought my first property. I house hacked it, right? House hack. And by the time I was 27, I had 30 units, somewhere right around there. So maybe 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I quit my job, and I was like, I'm financially free. I'm done.
So you're working at a bank. You buy all these properties.
Yep. The bank was only 1 year. It was a terrible year. And but I actually only took the job. Actually, I got the job. This is a funny story. I got the job because I went into the bank to ask for a loan. I was flipping a house. The market was crashing. It was like probably 2012, somewhere around there. And I went to the bank, and I'm like, I'm trying to flip this house, and it's not working, so I got to refinance it. Can I get a loan? And the lady, I showed her all my numbers. I had it spread out over whole desk. And I'm like, I just need a small loan. It was like $80,000 or something like that. And she's like, you don't have a job. Like, you don't make any money. And I'm like, I know, but look at this deal. It makes such sense. And so she's like, no, but are you looking for a job? And I'm like, no, not at all. And she called me back a month later and was like, listen, you really need to come take this job. Like, I've seen your finances. You need this job. And I was like, fine.
Wait. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah.
The loan request.
Yeah.
The underwriting was so bad that they're like, we're not going to give you money unless you work for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took the job, and then they gave me a loan at the bank. So, yeah, because now I had income.
That's
so
fascinating.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who do that. I did that when I was like, I want to get in real estate, but I was like selling cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to get a W-2 to get loans.
Yeah.
I didn't want the job. I wanted the W-2.
Which today, I feel like now with the knowledge I have today, I probably could have figured out another way to do it. Like, I would have probably found a partner who could have helped me refinance it into a normal loan. At the time, I just didn't know that was a thing. So.
Yeah, I actually love that because I think that's a lot of people say that when you get experienced and you have all this confidence, you're like, well, if I went, I could just go do this thing. But when you're 27, even though you had done some houses, I don't know what your network was like yet, but if you were going to a bank and asking for $80,000 in 2012, you probably didn't have the confidence or the wherewithal. So it's interesting because now I know you really well, and I'm like, dude, you will go sort of, I don't want to say ask for anything, but like your mindset is definitely a lot bigger now.
Yeah, mindset's it's kind of a fluffy word, right? Like your mindset changes because you don't really notice a mindset changing. But when I look back at how I thought back then versus how I think today, in terms of like today, I'm just like, there's always a way to figure it out. There's always like abundance. There's always opportunity. Back then, I was not as confident in myself.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to another question. I have a list of questions here.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
It's not often.
And I want to ask you. I want to ask you permission because you messed up because I know you better than most people, and I'm probably hardest on you than anybody.
Probably.
Probably top 3.
Yeah.
If not the hardest. But I want to ask you some hard questions today.
Okay.
And I want your permission.
You have my permission. Anything at all.
But before that, I want to ask you actually an easy question about mindset. You have the most abundant mindset of anybody I have ever met.
Thanks.
And
I think
that's the thing. That's the thing I've learned most about you, and I think people see that in you. But man, being close, it is. I'm not one for complimenting Brandon Turner, but this is. But this is where I think you have taught me the most, and I think that more people could learn that from you. And I would like to hear, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, do you realize that, and how can somebody get there?
I mean, I've heard you say that before. You told somebody else that, and I was like, I don't know, is that true? But I guess, in every single way, I always assume that there's more money and there's more opportunity, there's more deals, and there's more things. And I think that comes with. There's a famous thing. It's like confidence comes from competence. So I feel really competent in what I do and in my personal brand and in my ability to brand myself and my ability to get people to know, like, and trust me. And therefore, I am confident in whatever I need to do. Like if I just needed $1 million tomorrow, I'd probably be able to figure out a way to get $1 million tomorrow. Because I put in the work.
I've literally seen you do that. I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
But how do you give that to somebody? I agree with that statement a lot. I've had people in my life that, I've been in the gym my whole life, and people think that the gym is going to make you, looking better is going to somehow make you confident. It's not. It's something about accomplishing the fitness will make you confident, but confidence comes from accomplishment. I agree with that fully, but would you agree that there's sort of a fake it till you make it
A little bit, yeah.
momentum in life? I mean, could you
Yeah.
give me something actionable?
Yeah, when I read, I don't know if this is actionable. It's going to sound incredibly arrogant, and I'm going to say it anyway because I think there's value here. I remember telling a friend of mine when I was 26, maybe 25, still just trying to build up real estate. I said these words to him. I said, I am the smartest real estate investing mind I've ever met. And it sounds so arrogant to say out loud, but two things it illustrates. One, I was so confident that I knew a ton. And now today I'm like, I didn't know anything. But I knew a ton back then because I read 100 books, right? I just had an immense amount of knowledge, and I retain a lot of knowledge because that's an actionable thing is when you read a book, always read it with a pen in your hand because then you'll always understand twice as much. And so when you read it with a pen in your hand and underline stuff, you're studying, you're not reading. That's a huge difference. Most people make the mistake. They read books, they don't study books. So I study nonfiction, I read fiction, if that makes sense.
It's passive versus active
Yeah,
learning.
yeah. I'm very an active. Yeah, it's like I'd never heard that term, but yeah, active listening. We say that all the time, right? Active listening, active reading. I'm an active reader, and therefore I remember almost everything I read. So I studied real estate. I didn't read real estate books. I studied real estate books, and therefore I said I'm the smartest real estate mind I know. And I said it all again truthfully, but I also didn't. I lived in a small town in Western Washington, and there was no real estate club, no real estate meetup. I had no real estate friends. Like I was the only real estate investing mind that I knew. But I was super confident back then because I had the knowledge and because I also am just fearless is the wrong word because I'm afraid, I'm sure of a lot of things and I get nervous about things. But I'm totally okay with risk. I'm just like, we'll take that risk. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I've watched you all year. It's the thing that I've imparted or taken from you the most, and I've actually practiced some of it, and I plan to do more. But that's the greatest gift you've given me, and I would love to. Yeah,
Here's maybe a tangible thing that people can take from that. And I learned this from Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Workweek. He calls it the worst case scenario analysis. And the idea is that any decision you're trying to decide on, I run it through the worst case scenario analysis. What really could go wrong here? Like, What's the worst case scenario? Okay, I buy a duplex and I live in half it and rent the other half out. What's the worst that could happen? Well, the tenant could stop paying. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, then what would happen? Okay. Well, I guess I'd have to cover their half of the rent. Well, how much is the rent? $500 a month. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I could pull a couple extra shifts at work and cover that. So worst case scenario, I'd have to cover a couple extra shifts until I get them out. It's not always that bad. And so I think we haven't named what the fear is that we have. We just have an internal fear that makes us not act. And because we haven't named what the fear is or the consequences of the fear, we don't act. But when you actually name the fear, like this is what I'm afraid of, and then you say, well, what would happen if that actually happened? All of a sudden you realize there's nothing to be afraid of, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just do that thing. So I do that constantly in things.
Yeah, interesting. I was for a long time I was an underwriter, and I used to say never fear risk, just manage it.
Yeah.
Or
That's
just
great.
measure it. It's like
risk is just something to look at and then say, is it worth doing or worth not doing? And you just continually make those bets on things that have a greater chance of winning than losing.
you go bigger and bigger as time goes on. You make bigger bets.
Size-wise, I mean, I've been trying to cut down, but but wait, joke.
You make bigger bets on bigger projects. Is it the more that you succeed, does it give you more confidence, or is it like resources? The more resources you get, the more like, dude, I can't get taken out, so I can take bigger risks. Is it a combination?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I do think there's a momentum thing where like the more I do, the more I am able to do, because I feel like for example, when we started buying mobile home parks, my first mobile home park, when I started Open Door Capital, I'd never bought one before. I never bought anything like that. It's a different animal, mobile home parks are. And so like there was some fear there about it, but I bought a 50 unit. That is very manageable. I also didn't buy it alone. I bought it with Ryan Murdoch, who, I mean, there's a long story here, but basically Ryan brought me the deal. I didn't know who he was. He just brought me this deal randomly and was like, hey, I heard you say you wanted a 50 unit mobile home park.
Was it in Maine or something?
Yeah, I was visiting New York City for a speaking gig, and he happened to be there at the gig, but he's from Maine. And so he flew down just to hear me speak. He's like, hey, I found this mobile home park. You might like it. A friend of mine's selling it. So I didn't buy the mobile home park alone. I managed the risk. This goes back to risk, right? Is it risky to spend $1 million on a mobile home park? Yes. How do I manage that risk? Well, I bring in a partner. So I gave him, I think, he ended up 15%, I think is what I gave him the first deal of that deal. 15%, plus then he invested his own money. And then he got a piece of more because of that. So I think he ended up owning, 20-25% of the deal. And I brought in another partner to bring in other bit of money. And then I brought in some money. So I kind of all joined. I ended up owning maybe 40% of that deal at the end of the day. But I had Ryan Murdoch, who had managed mobile home parks for like a decade, sitting there in the area that I bought in, managing that property. I don't think I could de-risk that deal anymore. Like, I mean, like I took almost every piece of risk out of it. And so, and yes, that cost me 60% of that deal. Who cares? Really, it cost me 15 of that piece of Ryan's. It'll make me way more. And so that's how I look at everything as managing risk. And so I'm totally okay with that. I brought Brian Murray in later for Open Door Capital. Brian Murray wrote a couple of really great real estate books, but Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate was the first one. I brought that guy in, and we decided to work together. And yeah, he takes a big chunk of equity. He owns a lot of Open Door Capital. Great. I can do 5-10 times more with Brian than I could do without him. So I'm mitigating risk by bringing in expertise at every level. I think that's probably the number one way to mitigate risk is people, the good people, A players.
Yeah, I think people. Do you think that smaller, new investors they're too afraid to bring on partners in the beginning?
100%.
And so then they're like, I can't do one by myself, so then I just don't do one.
Dude, they're either greedy. Sometimes it's greedy and sometimes it's ego. I read something today that was pretty fascinating. I'm listening to the book Spin Selling. Have you heard of that one? So it's a book on sales. It's a really, really popular sales book. And I had read it maybe 10 years ago. And I read like the first 2 chapters. And I was like, I don't really care about this. I'm not in sales. I don't need it. Now I'm kicking myself. But a book hits you at the right point. Today I'm like, I got a lot of things to sell in life. Just whether it's BetterLife Tribe or Open Door Capital. I'm like, maybe I should pick up a book. And that's a whole other topic I'd love to talk about is just skill set. Like we kind of stop developing skills at some point in our life the older you get. But anyway, we'll come back to that. Maybe it's your show. So I'm listening to this, and he makes this super interesting point in there, and I stopped walking listening to it, and I wrote down some notes on my phone about it. He said this. He said people, when they're buying something, they will buy something and take the risk to buy if no one will find out that they made the wrong choice. So if they're the only one, it's not about price that making them want to buy or not buy an item. Will somebody know if I screwed this up? It's ego that makes somebody buy or sell.
I've never heard that before.
I had never heard it either. But now when I think about it, it's like I recently got sold, quote unquote sold. I'm doing a $50,000 product, an educational product. I'm paying $50,000 for it. I had no problem. I mean, it was like a couple hour conversation with the dude, and then we talked about it, and I was like, yeah, this is a no brainer. So I just paid $50,000. And up until this moment, no one in the world other than my wife knew that I spent that money. And so I could have spent it, and it could have not worked out, and nobody would have known, ego-wise. But instead, if I buy like a cheap thing, like if I wouldn't put on my Instagram, like I'm so excited about my new phone, I got the Galaxy whatever because it's an Android, and then I ended up hating an Android, which I would, then I look like a moron to people. And so it's an easier sell. This is what the book claims. It's easier for me to spend the $50,000 because it's an ego thing. I won't get in trouble. I won't get made fun of for it versus the phone, which I might.
Social shame.
Sense? Yeah, social shaming. And so
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that is why was I even going there? What were we talking about?
Selling. You're talking about skills. Then you talk about learning how to sell.
Yeah. Well,
and you love being sold, by the way.
I do love being sold.
Yeah.
I think everyone loves being sold. Everyone loves being sold. What was I going there? I think it was just the idea of I think ego. I was something with ego. Man, now I don't remember where I was going with that, but it was a good story. Whatever. Keep going.
Professional podcaster, Brandon Turner.
I'm going to listen to this later and be like, oh, yeah, that was my train of thought there. But anyway, point being, skill set anyways, I'm trying to develop my skill set into that world because I think that would make me better as a person.
Yeah. Do you think that you said people stop developing their skills at some point? Do you think we fall into comfort zones about who we claim we are and the narratives we tell ourselves? And we're like, I'm not that. So then we don't work on that.
Yes.
And then maybe that, everybody needs to learn how to sell a little bit. Not everybody is like a hyper salesperson.
Yeah.
But if you avoid it, then and you don't have that skill set at all, it's like that hurts you more than.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Where I think the older we get, the more we get cemented into our identity of who we are and who we're not. And I'm not a sales guy, but when we were kids, we weren't baseball players. We weren't we weren't anything. We chose what we wanted to be. And then we went and worked at that thing, and we developed that skill set. And sometimes we were forced to do it, but we still had to work at it. And today, I started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, who do I want to be in the future? And then I thought, okay, well, who do I want to be? And then I want to work backwards. What does that person have to be good at? I want to be. I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but if I had to say my goal, I want to be the Dave Ramsey of real estate investing. Like Dave Ramsey is the guy. There's no second in the world. Like nobody's like, oh yeah, he's the personal finance guy. Of course it's Dave Ramsey. Ask 10 people who the personal finance guy in America is, and 10 out of 10 will say Dave Ramsey. I want to be the Dave Ramsey of real estate investing. Right now, that's not the case. I might be top 5 or top 10.
You're top 3 in my heart.
Thank you. But like, so what does the Dave Ramsey of real estate have to be good at? And it's like, they have to be really good at public speaking. I'm okay at public speaking. I'm not really good at it.
What's interesting about this is I think you're naturally good.
And maybe that's even why I don't develop the skills. When you're naturally good at it, you don't need to develop the skill.
You think you don't have to
Yeah, exactly. You think you don't have to develop the skill, so you don't. But I've been thinking a lot lately. I'm like, well, if I might be naturally good at talking publicly or on a podcast, but I'm not world class. I'm not like Ed. I would consider like an Ed Milet like world class. Patrick Bay-David world class. Dave Ramsey world class. I am not at their league. So why am I not taking public speaking classes? Because of my ego, or because I'm like, I'm already good enough. I don't know. What is it?
Is it public speaking? Is that really, because we've talked about this quite a bit recently, public speaking, but is that really
It's just communication, I guess, is more of that. Just my ability to communicate effectively.
Well, what does Dave Ramsey do? Because I love this, because I actually have been, I would love for us to do a live call-in show. Yeah. That's what Dave Ramsey did.
That's what he did
for 20 years. Could I set you up on 5 hours a day?
Yeah,
people call in and say, hey, I got this real estate problem. Can we talk it through? And you...
Well, I think you bring up, that's how you develop a skill set. You can either train for it, or you can just work at it 5 hours a day for 5 days a week, and you do 1 million reps. Yeah, and you just naturally will get better. That's what, like, if you go listen to the first podcast I ever did, I was terrible. First, video I made for YouTube, terrible. So there is a rep thing there. But if you want to cut short your reps, you hire someone to help you cut short your reps.
So both.
Yeah. So I don't need to necessarily do 5 days a week of a radio show to get good. I can hire the best trainer in the world, pay him $10,000, whatever it costs for a few sessions, and then 10x my ability is my theory. So I'm just really leaning into the skill sets lately of always developing. I had a friend who actually came recently and said to me that every single morning he spends 30 minutes working on skills. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, every single morning I spend 30 minutes of my morning routine working on a skill I want to develop. And it just blew my mind, because I'm like, who does that? Like, who sits there and deliberately develops their skills as an adult who's already super successful? When you're trying to get good at something, maybe you do a little bit of like, I'm going to work on deal analysis today. But successful people generally just stop developing them. Like, deliberate practice would be the word.
That's so weird, because I feel like I agree with that. And I also feel like that's the worst thing that we could be doing. As we get more successful, it's like, dude, we got to...
Yeah, you got double down.
We got bigger responsibility. We got bigger tasks. We should be doubling down. Yeah. Also, I love that you just casually say, I'm just going to pay somebody $10,000 to teach me this thing. And
let's go. It would come back, guaranteed come. It's an asymmetric bet, right? Like,
this is the abundant mindset that it is the one thing that has imparted. I've said it already on this podcast before. It is imparted on me. And how do you just say, I'm just going to spend $10,000 on this person because I believe it'll pay off, or I'm going to spend, I know you've spent pretty big numbers on private masterminds to get in rooms with people, and I believe in all these things, but somebody in the car is listening and they're like, I want to join BetterLife, which is, $300 very reasonably priced, or maybe I want to join a higher dollar one, or maybe I want to join Brandon's high dollar mastermind, but it's just a big check, and maybe they have it, but they're still afraid. Yeah. And I get it, because I'm in the same boat. So like, how do you push somebody over the edge?
I just think very logically about it. And what I mean by that is this: when you think in averages, think in averages is probably one of the most important success principles in the world. Think in averages means, on average, every book that I read, every nonfiction book that I read makes me money, a significant amount of money. Because if I had never read any nonfiction book ever, I would still be working at that bank making $13 an hour. Every piece of information that I get makes me a little bit more money over time. Now, I don't know which book is going to do it. Like, I didn't know Rich Dad Poor Dad here or The One Thing were going to be two like the standout books of my life. But you don't know ahead of time. Steve Jobs once said you can only connect the dots looking back, not looking forward. So I can't say these are the 5 books going forward I'm going to step on and it's going to make me $1 million each. But if I read 100 books and I make $100 million, well, that means every book made me $1 million. And so I think same with conferences, right? If I go to 5 real estate conferences, one might I might, and 4 of them are just duds, and I feel like I didn't learn anything and didn't build any connections. But one of them, I met a business partner, and we went and built a big real estate business together and made $5 million. Then I made an average of $1 million per conference because if I went to none. So it's very logical when I spend money on anything in that way, which is why I have a rule. Like if I'm thinking about buying a book, if I even have the thought like, oh, I'd like to read that, I buy it no matter what. That's why I own so many books. I just buy a book no matter what. I may not read them. I heard a quote the other day that said books like, don't feel bad about piles of books in your house because it's like wine. Like you just got to wait for the right night to enjoy it. But yeah, every book I just buy because I know that's $1 million or 100,000 or whatever number you want to attach to it. So I'm very logical about it, and that's why I'm willing to make bets all the time on stuff.
I'm with you on books.
Yeah.
I buy a ton of books.
Yeah.
I don't care. Books are $30.
Yep.
Some masterminds are $30,000.
Yeah, I paid 30. 35. I paid for this $50,000 kind of private coaching thing. Like
they all have a big enough return
every time. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that. On average, every time.
On average, yeah.
On average, every time. I don't know which one's going to be it, so I make my best choice, and it's all a gamble. But on average, every one. I mean, here's an example. One of the groups I'm a part of, it's $35,000 a year for me to be a part of this group. That's a lot of money. I mean, I'm not that loaded. I actually don't take a salary from BetterLife. I don't make money from Open Door Capital till the end. And so I'm living on book royalties for the most part and the cash flow I get from my rental property. So I'm not as rich as people might think I am. And so 35 grand was it's a chunk. 50 grand was a chunk. But I had one conversation with one of the guys in that $35,000 group 2 weeks ago. Me and Matt Buck did. And the stuff he explained over a 1-hour call will make the BetterLife Tribe millions of dollars. It was so incredibly valuable. I could do nothing else all year in that group except for that one phone call, and that paid for itself. So I probably should have had BetterLife pay for it, but I didn't.
I want to do this more.
Yeah, reaching out to people?
No, people on me. I go to masterminds that I don't pay for because I'm so popular. No, people is not my weakness, but I want to pay to access more because I can't always charm my way into everywhere, obviously. But I want to learn that skill set, and I want other people to learn that skill set because I just think it's so valuable. And I watch you do it. I'm so impressed.
Well, this is one of the areas I've changed my mind 180 degrees over the past 10 years. So when I was early in my real estate career, it was do not pay for education. Don't go to events that are expensive. Like you can get everything for free on the internet. Don't pay. It's stupid to pay. I mean, when we first at BiggerPockets started charging $9 a month for the pro membership, it was like we felt so bad. It was
$9?
$9 or it was at the beginning. I think it might have been $4 even at one point.
It's still too cheap.
Yeah, it's still too cheap. But like I was so against spending any money because I'm like, you don't need it. And now I realize like you're not spending the money necessarily for some information that you could get for free. Like people don't join the BetterLife Tribe because they want information. I mean, yes, I have courses in there and stuff, but they're not joining. You can find every piece of information that I've ever said in that course, probably somewhere on the internet or in a book from the library. You're paying for access to people. You're paying for a belief change. You're paying for the group think. Group brainwashing is what we are trying to do. We are a cult
with success.
Okay. With
cult of success.
Yeah, we are a cult of success here. You don't have to like sleep with the cult leader. Like that's the bad cult. We want to be a good cult. And so like that's what you're paying for is this camaraderie of people. And for that, like what an incredibly good investment. Like how does that not, if you're with, forget even the BetterLife Tribe, just in general, you go join a group of hundreds of people that have a different mindset than you, but has the mindset of what you want to become, and they're all working towards it, and you meet with them all the time in person or online. How do you not become more like those people? How do you not spend that money?
Wholeheartedly agree. Do you know that in 2019, I went to the BiggerPockets conference? I was sold on it, but it was expensive. It was $1,200 ticket, flight, hotel, and I brought my camera. I don't know if you remember this.
No.
We had just met because I was on your podcast back in 2018, and we talked very briefly. And I took your photo, I took your picture, some nondescript photo because it was when I was still pretty bad. But what's interesting is, I think that was the first time we ever met in person, and so without that, and then by the way, at the end of the conference, they called me and they said, "Hey, we saw you walking around with a camera. We hired somebody. They didn't get a single picture of Brandon Turner."
That's funny.
Do you know the story?
No, I never.
They're like, we didn't get a single picture of Brandon Turner. I said, that's where my secret power was always going to be. Was like, I know these people.
You know the people, yeah.
They're just some hired gun in the area. They don't know who Brandon Turner is, and I'm like, I have 3 pictures of Brandon, 3, but that was the only 3 they had. And then what I did was like, oh, well, the next time I went, they paid me as a photographer, and then we got to meet again. And I would not be here if I hadn't done that. Like, say yes, I
love that.
Spend the money.
Yeah, you did it.
I want to get better at it, but I want other people to get better at it too, because I think it's so valuable. So I'm glad you answered that. But it also makes me think about the Better Life Tribe and other groups, and I think about this a lot, and I'm a little bit less apologetic about saying very directly what I think. I think paying for access to people who can afford to pay for access to people in and of itself without any other value. Better Life Tribe, we do it. We do a ton. We provide a ton of value. I believe if there was nothing else other than you're around people who can afford it, that would be enough.
Yeah. We have a thing in Open Door Capital called the Cabana Club, and it's anybody who invests $500,000 or more into one of our deals. It's funny, the Cabana Club is like, there's like 200 people in it at this point. We get together a couple, like once a year, or maybe we have a special dinner at one of the Better Life events. But everyone's in it for the same reason. It's not to hang out with me. It's because they're like, oh, other people can invest $500,000 into an Open Door Capital deal. I want to hang out with those people. And so we did like a Maui trip. We're going to do another one, I think, this year. They just want to hang out with other people who can afford to spend.
Who can write the check.
Now, all that said, I don't want people to mistake me in saying, like, if you have no money right now and you're broke, you should go spend $10,000 or $35,000 on a mastermind. I'm actually still pretty darn opposed to that idea of like, hey, put it on credit card because it'll pay yourself off. Yes, there's examples of where that has worked. When people are completely broke and they go to one of those guru fests and the guru says, hey, it works sometimes. But more often than not, it does not work. And so it's actually more like a casino in that case. What I mean by that is the casino, the odds are against you. More often than not, you will lose. Even though you might win a couple times, 49% even, if you stay long enough, you would always lose at a casino. The same thing is true. More than half of people, I don't have this data to back it up, but I'm sure it's true. Much more than half of people who go to one of those guru boot camps do not take action on the thing that they're doing.
Sure.
And therefore, I would say you're not any different than those people. We all think we're different. We all think we're special.
I'm special.
Yeah, exactly. We all think I would never do that. But let me just ask, have you ever started a diet, not you personally, but people listening, have you started a diet and then not finished it? Yeah, right?
Why can't I go on a diet? Wait, what was that? That was so personal.
I know that you would never quit a diet. So you're perfect, man. But have you ever started a diet? Have you ever started a book and not finished it? Have you ever bought an online course and not finished it? We all do that stuff. We're not special. We're all really bad at finishing things and doing things and taking action. Even myself, especially myself. I've never finished a course I've bought ever in my entire life. I waste a ton of money on education and books that I don't ever read. It's just part of being life. So recognizing that, I would say, instead of paying $35,000, pay for something that you can afford. Maybe it's hurting you a little bit. It's a stretch because it's going to make you want to work for it. But don't hurt your financial future because you put $35,000 on a credit card and then you never took action on the thing.
It's a really good point. Yeah, and I think about that. I mean, I started this with like, hey, I want to do that, but I don't.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not saying go out and spend your last dollar on these things, but it is an interesting dynamic because I truly believe that the value is there. I actually think going forward in the culture, that is going to become more and more of a thing. Yeah,
when we at the Better Life Tribe, when we first launched, remember this? We allowed spouses to join for free. Because that was my idea, was like, hey,
I remember.
Yeah. So we were like, with this idea, we're like, okay, you join the Better Life Tribe for $300 a month. We launched this. Your spouse can join for free. What a brilliant idea, because we should work together on our goals with our spouses. We did a couples goal setting thing that sold the tribe and told everyone how great it would be. And the spouses didn't have to pay anything. And when people, this is a quote I learned from Michael Hyatt, who's a author that I really like. He said, when people don't pay, they don't pay attention. And I'm not saying every spouse this way, but 95% of those spouses never showed up to their pods, never came to any of the stuff. They just were they just didn't do anything. So they received no benefit out of the free education. So if you're somebody, I mean, this applies to people on both sides. If you want to do something, you do want to pay for that thing. I highly, like, that's why the
skin in the game.
Yeah, skin in the game. I'm not saying go bankrupt over it if it doesn't work out. I think there's risk, and there's stupid risk, and then there's skin in the game.
No credit cards.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go load if you don't have the money. But if it means you got to sell your car and go buy a cheaper car to get rid of a car payment and instead join a group that's $300 a month instead of a car payment, yeah, all day long. Now you got skin in the game that's not going to bankrupt you. You had to make a hard choice. And that choice better pay off, and so you're going to show up and you're going to pay. In fact, you mentioned that high ticket thing. I have a group called the 50. It's $50,000 a year to be in it.
Yeah, I want to join.
Yeah, I know you should be in it. It's great. $50,000. No discounts for friends. So it's.
Well, we're not friends anyway.
Yeah,
so
here's the thing. So BiggerPockets is what, $40 a month for a pro membership. BetterLife is like $300 a month, and the 50 is $50,000 a year. You know who complains the most? Oh, and then there's the free, let's say free BiggerPockets people. The people who complain the most are the free BiggerPockets people. The people who complain the least are the $50,000 a year people. So like there is something magical about like, yeah, when you invest money, you're invested. And again, you know, great power, great responsibility. So like, don't take advantage of people with that. But like, there's definitely a psychology thing going on there.
Yeah.
So I like paying for things. I'm part of another group that I used to pay $15,000 a year for it. This is like Mastermind. And then they're like, oh, you brought us a lot of people. And so we're going to give you a free membership. They changed my membership to free. I stopped paying for it. I have not been to a single event since. Not one.
Is that when it stopped?
That's when it stopped.
Because I know you don't really...
Yeah, I don't participate anymore. I love it. It's still great. Great things over there. Great people over there.
It's not a competition thing. It's just...
Yeah,
you're just like, it doesn't hurt anymore?
Yeah, it doesn't. And I don't know why that is. It's just it's completely absurd. But I don't pay, so I don't pay attention. There's no skin in the game on that anymore. Hey, quick story for you. About 5 years ago, I went to a real estate event where I met a handful of incredible investors. 2 of them in particular, though, changed my life. Those 2 investors were Brian Murray, Ryan Murdoch. They're now partners with me at Open Door Capital, where we bought over $1 billion worth of real estate. Not a bad ROI for an event, right? Now, why do I share that? Because it's one of the most underutilized tools for real estate investors, events. You can't put a price tag on the relationships you build, new business partners you meet, the knowledge you gain. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about BetterLife's REI Summit that I'm personally hosting on May 3rd through May 5th in Denver, Colorado. I'll be there along with a number of other speakers that you might recognize like Ken McElroy, David Green, AJ Osborne, Brian Murray, who I mentioned earlier, and more. The event's going to be the most actionable real estate event ever, with sessions being structured on a how-to basis, so you can walk away with actionable steps that you can actually implement in your business ASAP. Whether you're a new investor or a seasoned investor, the dual-track sessions ensure that you'll be in sessions relevant to your business and experience. If you're interested in learning more, check out reisummit2024.com. That's reisummit2024.com. Ticket prices are increasing soon, so register ASAP to lock in the lowest rate while you can.
So... and I'll round out this topic, but so the abundant mindset and the pain, the skin in the game.
Yeah.
Do you think those are tied?
Very much tied. Yeah.
Because another thing I've seen you do all year that I really, man, I am trying to learn and I'm doing a real bad job of it, but I'm trying.
Deadlifts.
No, I will. No, sir. I will always destroy you on
deadlifts. Will always destroy me on deadlifts. Okay.
Look, it's good to have something that equalizes us, Dude, you hire people.
Hire people. Yeah.
You hire people. You hire people like in a way that I stress about my job more than you stress about my job.
That's funny.
like probably a lot more.
People are the greatest investment you can ever make. It's not real estate.
100%
stocks.
agree.
Yeah, people are the investment, and they're an asymmetric bet. Same thing. If you hire 10 people, and I mean, like, you don't hire people forever, right? So let's say you hired. Let's even go more simple. You hire one person. They might not be great. They might last a couple months, and you have to fire them, and that was kind of hard, and you had to learn and had to grow as a leader, and you had to fire them, and you lost $20,000. Okay, that sucks. You do it again. You hire somebody else. Same situation. You lose $20,000. Same situation happens a third time. But you're going to get better every time, so there's some benefit. But now you've lost $60,000. You do it again and again. You've now lost $100,000 hiring these 5 people that all sucked. The 6th person is really good and he makes you $1 million. Helps you buy 50 houses a year. Like how is that? Like, that's the best investment on the planet, as long as you're willing to invest in learning how to manage people and get better, which we both are. And so, like, yeah, why would you not hire people constantly wanting to hire people? You're benefiting them. You're growing your business. You're getting out of stuff. The fastest way to become a billionaire is just be a quitter. Just quit everything constantly. Just have a good idea. And you don't have to invent the idea. Don't reinvent the wheel. And just quit. Just get other people to do it that are better than you, and you'll be rich.
I feel like I've learned the most about this topic today, so thank you. This is great. I'm serious. This is like so much clarity in this thing that I've been trying to learn from you.
Yeah, people are the greatest asymmetric bet you can make, and so you keep making people bets over and over and over, and then have the courage to fire them, which I have struggled with.
Same.
Yeah, it's hard to fire people. It's hard to let people go.
It's hard to fire people even for me, and I'm the most conflict-oriented person you know.
Yeah, it still sucks because
they're people.
Okay, they're people, and you don't fire people like, I've never fired someone for being bad. We have fired people for not being great, and that's very different. Does that make sense? Like, there are people who are not exceptional, and if I'm trying to give away $1 billion and become the Dave Ramsey of real estate, I have to surround myself with A players that are exceptional. And therefore, it'd be so much easier if they were stealing or cheating or doing something bad. Like, to the people that we've had to let go over the last few years, it'd be so much better if they were bad people, but they're not. They're great people. I love them.
They're above average.
They're above average, but they likely weren't exceptional, world-class, number one best in the world. So
that's brutal.
It's a
That is
brutal
a
lesson.
brutal
And it's
lesson.
hard. It's a hard, and it's like, if you have big, huge dreams and big vision, it takes a level of, I don't even know what to call it. Yeah, like brutalness to get there. Like, you have to be a little brutal in order to get to that peak level. You're not unethical. You're not being unkind. It just takes a level of like focus and clarity to win. It's like the man in the arena thing, right? Like the credit belongs to the man who's in the arena, not like sitting over there with a sword, like playing in the sand, drawing sandcastles. Like, the person who wins is the person who fights the best. And I think that's true in business and life. Like, you gotta be brutally good.
Have you ever been to relentless.com?
I don't think so.
Do you know what this is?
No.
I know you don't have your phone on you, but this would be a good exercise. If you go to relentless.com, that website has been owned for 25, 30 years. It's the same website. If you open it up, it's Amazon.
No, really?
Jeff Bezos buys this like 30 years ago when URL's a thing. He's like, I'm gonna be relentless. He buys relentless.com, the URL, and it redirects now to Amazon.
funny.
And it's just a good,
Yeah.
to your point, where you're like, this is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. There's a book called Red Rising. I think. Have you read that one yet? No,
I've been
I know I've told you
listening
about
to it as I sleep.
Have you?
I'm
Okay.
trying to learn it by
Yeah,
osmosis. Yeah.
So Red Rising is my favorite fiction book, or at least maybe top two. I've got two favorite fiction books: Red Rising and The Name of the Wind.
Oh, that's the one that.
That's the
what's,
one.
What's the thing you always
it's
say?
like butter. It's like reading butter.
It's like reading
Dude, it's so
butter.
good.
I love this
The
analogy.
The Name of the Wind is like reading butter. It's just poetry and how it's written. But anyway, the Red Rising, the thing that I love about that book so much as a fiction book is the main character is just brutally ruthless in his quest for winning. And I think that in my life I have been far too like, hey, let's have a church bake sale and see if we can do a good job with friends. And again, it's not about me being mean or being alone. It's just about like, am I going to give away $1 billion to fight human trafficking or not? If I have that goal, which I do, and I have that dream and I want to do it, I can't be bake sale Brandon. I have to be brutally like relentless Brandon. And that's why like the conversation of letting people go that are not A players is super, super difficult. And having hard conversations, which something I've not been good at and I'm really working at, is having hard conversations. Because you do not become the Dave Ramsey of real estate without having hard conversations. I guarantee you Dave Ramsey has hard conversations constantly.
He's tough.
He's a tough guy.
He's tough.
You have to be.
You don't
at
have
that
to-
level. Same with David Goggins, Patrick Bet-David, Jocko Willink. Like, those guys are brutal in their quest to achieve their goals. They're not passive in it.
Patrick Bet-David just wrote a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Yeah.
Which I read, actually. It's okay, but
Yeah.
it was, he's tough.
Yeah.
He's tough. I got some other questions here, and then
Okay.
I don't want to take your entire day.
Take it, man. We're going to the gym at 4:10, right?
What time is it? You are calm, cool. I think this is a trait that a lot of entrepreneurs share that I don't share. You are very low neurotic. You don't seem to dwell. You say, just risk. What's the worst case scenario? You are very easygoing in a lot of ways. Not to say you'd have no stress. I'm looking at you. For anybody looking at his face right now, he's like,
Not that stressed.
he's engaging with the pits of despair. But you're a very easygoing guy. It makes me very jealous because I'm not that way. Do you know that other people stress wildly more than you and can't help it?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I understand. I see people stress a lot more. I've never been that way, so it's hard to understand exactly why that is. I've had maybe one moment of like extreme anxiety in my entire life.
When?
It was just, what was it, like maybe 6 months ago? I just felt this crushing, like it was just too much going on at one time. It was too much. It was Open Door Capital had a huge raise going on. It was BetterLife was struggling to pull something off and to build something, and it was like we had some employees that weren't like doing, a work, and I was stressing me out. Really what that came down to, honestly, was me knowing deep down I had to have hard conversations, and I didn't want to have them. So I was like fighting against them. And that exhibits itself as stress sometimes.
Back pain.
Yeah, back pain. Yeah, it's like that's a whole different conversation. That's fascinating that we could talk about. But I think people just exhibit stress in different ways. Or is that the word, exhibit? They showcase stress in different ways. And yeah, maybe mine's just in my back being sore. So it's more of a physical thing than a mental thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting to watch because I think that's what lets you do so much. So anyways, I just didn't know if I'm pretty high neurotic. I mean, some people are definitely worse. Carson's definitely worse.
I think some of it, I have no idea. I was going to say some of it may come from like the religious, background of myself. And what I mean by that is not that there's not neurotic religious people, but I feel pretty darn confident that if I got hit by a bus, I know where I'm going. And so maybe there's just kind of like
Dude, Miss Kate has this. My fiance,
she does.
She's amazing. And
she is amazing.
I'm just she's like a light.
Yep.
And I am just chasing that light. I'm like, how do you do this? And she's like, Jesus loves me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm fine. And she has stress. She's like, hey, we're going to be okay, right? I'm like, we're going to be fine.
Yep.
And then she's over it. I'm like, I think.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a phrase in the Bible that says that someone with he'll give you a peace that surpasses all understanding.
He says that. She says that all the time. Yeah. I want peace that passes understanding.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't make sense why I have this peace, but yeah, it doesn't make sense why I have this peace, but I'm peaceful all the time. I don't want to overly spiritualize this. There's a passage in the Bible that talks about the fruits of the Spirit. In other words, they say hey, if you have a tree, they have fruit on it. The fruit kind of show, that's kind of the metaphor here. It's the fruit of the tree explains if the tree is healthy or not. So the fruit of having the Spirit, in other words, being a spiritual person, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, self-control. And the idea being, the closer you are to God, the more you exhibit those traits. And that all of life is God carving us the same way that Michelangelo carved, the statue David. It's chipping things off, trying to get closer and closer to this, what we can't achieve right now, but the idea of perfection or of Jesus, or, the idea of chipping away. And so anyway, I wonder, because I've been a Christian my entire life, maybe there's some component where I exhibit more of those fruits of the Spirit because I've been chipped away a lot more maybe than others. Yeah,
I think so. I was talking to our friend Jordan House-Hay about this a few weeks ago, and him and I are intellectual to a point that it's counterproductive. Right?
That's a book title right there.
Yeah, it's not a good. I don't want to sell this to anybody. But I'm very in depth, dense about philosophy and meaning, and I spend a lot of time on these things. And it's funny because it took me 30 years to realize whatever you got is where I went on the whole journey to learn what you already know. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh yeah, Christianity. Who knew? This thing is great. Yeah. Right? I wish somebody would have told me this, or I wish I would have listened. But now I'm getting there, and I'm like, oh my God, I've just wasted so much time trying to synthesize an answer that's not.
Yeah.
It's just I'm making it so much harder than it has to be.
Yeah, I think there is kind of a level of. It's kind of like a kid who has rebelling in teenage years against their parents. Right? Yeah, it's I'm going to go.
Can you believe I was rebellious?
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine that. It's they're like, screw mom and dad. I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to go and smoke my pot, and I'm going to go. The whole thing, right? Is that what they say? Smoke the pot? Is that? I'm going to go smoke the pot and do the meth, and then they
all right.
And they do the thing. I don't know. They do the bad thing. They're rebelling. I don't know. I didn't go through that phase.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not good at this. I can tell.
So they do the thing. They rebel, and then at some point later, they're like, oh man, I don't really like paying taxes. Maybe Republicans aren't so bad. There's this moment where you start moving and you become your parents because you realize all along actually they were actually probably right. Go to bed early, stay in more. Don't get drunk, you'll feel better. All the things your parents said to do are probably the right things. I think that's the thing with Christianity is I think we all rebel against it, or a lot of people rebel against it because they're like, it can't be that answer. I'm going to go and figure out my own way. Then later in life, they're like, oh, yeah, actually loving your neighbor as yourself and, being patient and kind. Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah.
Except everyone. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of rebellion. And it's only been very recently in my life that I sort of turned it around. And now I meet Kate and she's like nobody else I've ever met. And then what's interesting, I hang out with you and other folks on the island that share a lot of those things. And I'm like, why am I the only one that's got all this anxiety?
Yeah, I don't know if like a Christian faith removes anxiety. It doesn't remove anxiety, but I think there's a faith in a higher power in general makes you realize like, oh, I don't have to control all this. Like somebody else is controlling this. I can just, it's like my kids are just totally clueless about how crazy the world is. Like we go and travel Europe together with my family, right? Take my little 2-year-old, or when he was 2 at the time or whatever, and just walking through Paris, like no problem at all. Not realizing that there's probably like child molesters all around him. Like he doesn't like, not that Paris has child molesters, but you know, like there's bad people, right? And he's just walking down the street, doesn't care because he doesn't know, because he doesn't have to, because he's with dad. All he needs to care about is dad. That's it. He focuses on dad's here. Nothing else matters. And so I think there's in my life, I'm like, hey, dad's here. Nothing else matters. Like nothing can get me.
That's how she says it. I took a philosophy of religion class, and they went on this long, like 3-week thing about faith, and it was just like, from a very pragmatic standpoint, this may be rudimentary to some people. For me, it was quite enlightening. And it was, faith is understanding exactly what you said. The lessons in the Bible are right. You don't have to know that yet or agree with that yet.
Yeah.
You just have to have faith that it knows better and follow it, rather than rebel and then come around 10 or 15 years later and find out for yourself that it was right, and you just waste all that time and angst. And so I think about that. I'm trying to do better.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those things that I've learned from you that I'm just like, I saw it with Kate.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's a one-off. And then I'm like,
so cool.
She's not a one-off. Oh my God, you guys have this. What is this? I need some of this.
That's funny. There's a cool story or cool ending to this maybe that you probably heard this before, but maybe people haven't. The story in the Bible of the prodigal son. People say the prodigal son, and that the story was the son. Jesus tells this story. So Jesus is telling a story. He's like, there's a son who's like, Dad, screw you, I'm going to rebel. And he's like, I want my money right now that you were going to give me when you die, but I want it now, and I want to go out and party. And Dad's like, okay, fine. So he gives him the money, and the kid leaves. And he goes out and he goes parties, women, drinking, all that. Like literally just says he goes out and parties and loses it all. Then he's like, well, now I'm out of money. And so he ends up working at a farm with pigs, and he ends up feeding pigs for a while. And then he's so hungry and he has no money, so he looks at the food that the pigs are eating, and he's jealous. And he's like eating the pig food. And then he's like, what the heck am I doing? Like, my dad is rich and he lives over there, so I'm going to go home. And he's like, he has this whole plan. He goes, I'm going to go home and tell my dad, okay, I'm sorry, Dad. I've been horrible. Let me be a servant. I'll feed your pigs. Like, let me do the worst in the world job. He's like, at least it's better than doing it here. I might as well just go do it for my dad. So he has this whole plan, this whole speech prepared. He goes out there. And the line, like, I'll even choke up saying it because I think it's like the most powerful line in the Bible, is the father sees him from a far way off, and the dad runs to him. Not like standing there at the house. It's like, wait, you're back? Glad to see you're back. He runs to him. He and then that was like what's the word? That was not appropriate for an old man to run in that time period.
Okay.
Like that was considered like indignant or like whatever the word is. Like it wasn't dignified to run. The dad's like, who cares? I'm running because my son's back. He goes and throws a big party, slaughters their like cow or whatever, like eats it for a big party. And the other brother comes. He's like, wait, why are we doing that for my son? He's like, because he was lost and now he's found. Like I love that idea of like God, like not just like, hey, yeah, I'll let you come back. Like, oh yeah, come on back. I know you rebelled, but hey, you can go sleep over there in the barn. He was like, no, you're back. Like restored him, and I love that story.
There's no petty.
Yeah, there's no petty.
There's no I told you so.
Yep.
There's no resentment.
It was just come on back.
Genuine welcome.
Yep. And I love that story. That like no matter, and I look at that in every area of my life, like because you can look at that in a macro level of like, okay, I left God and I came back and He accepted me back. You can also choose to look at that in a micro level of like, hey, I really screwed up today, and I'm going to go back and apologize to God, or you can say it to somebody, and like, there's no judgment. There's no like, hey, I told you so. So no matter how many times I screw up in life and how many times I just drop the ball and miss the mark, I can always go back. And every time He's like running to me. Like that's how I envision it. Every time I screw up, God's running to me. And that's wild, man.
You are so well adjusted. This is not fair.
Oh, man. I don't know. I don't feel like that way.
You got a therapist?
I do have a therapist, but I don't know. I don't feel all that well adjusted, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, we never do, right? I feel well adjusted, and then I hang out with some of you guys. I'm like, oh, I'm a lunatic. I just started therapy.
Anyway.
How much time do I have?
You got as much time as you want.
Why did you leave BiggerPockets?
Ooh, that's a good question. I love BiggerPockets still to today. It wasn't mine, and I'm an egomaniac.
I called that at the beginning of the show, right? Did we all hear that?
Yeah, that's not entirely. I mean, it's half joke, but it's not entirely wrong. Certain people like. Here's what it is. I mean, there's a lot of reasons I could lay out here, but I'm going to go kind of a logical, mathematical way. At some point, BiggerPockets. When I started there, I didn't know internet marketing. I didn't know how to teach. I didn't know real estate education. I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know how to do things. I used that position to help them grow to a pretty massive level. And I learned a ton in the process. And I had equity there and I had a salary there. I made money. I had some part of the company, and that was great. But at some point, the ratio switched in terms of I then no longer believed that I had a higher financial and happiness benefit here as I would on my own. At some point, that equation shifts, and like it was like a teeter-totter, and it was like, doop. And all of a sudden I realized like, oh, I would be better off on my own. And I would make more money on my own. I would be happier on my own. I'd have more control on my own. And it still took me from that, when I realized that teeter-totter, it still took me 2 or 3 years to actually leave, because it's hard to leave comfort, like easy money. Like it was a good job.
Yeah,
and I was a big deal there.
Yeah,
like
you're still a big deal.
Thank you, but I'm not. I mean, like I left a podcast with whatever 300,000 listens per episode to one that has, I don't know, whatever 5% of that. I don't know what we're getting, 10% of that, whatever.
Stetson knows.
Yes, it's like the question I had when I left, and the reason it took me so long to leave, is I didn't know if I was Justin Timberlake or the other guy in NSYNC that I don't know his name.
Oh, I love that analogy. I haven't heard this analogy in a long time.
Yeah, when NSYNC broke up, Justin Timberlake, when he left them, he had no idea he was going to become Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, I forgot he was in NSYNC.
Yeah, he was just one of the guys in NSYNC. But what about the other guy in NSYNC, the guy with the goatee? I don't even know his name. Nobody knows his name. Like, I feel bad if you're listening, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. He's a tribe member.
Yeah. Hey. But like, Justin Timberlake didn't know he was going to blow up when he left NSYNC. I didn't know if this was going to work. It hasn't worked yet. I mean, I'm not the Dave Ramsey of real estate. I'm not as popular as I was when I was at BiggerPockets. But I believe 100% that I will be, because I just have a big vision of giving away $1 billion. In order to be able to do that, I'm going to have to be the Dave Ramsey of real estate, and I'm going to hire good people like you to come make it true.
I admire the confidence. I also think you probably make a terrible employee.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I was really bad as an employee.
You passed up, I don't know, does anybody know the story? You passed up management?
I mean, I
don't say that like negatively, but like roles that you're wrong for.
I deliberately stepped back several times from wanting to lead anything in that organization, because you get promoted to incompetence, right? It's very common in every business.
Peter Principle, they call it.
Is it? Yeah. You just get promoted, and then all of a sudden now you're leading people. And I'm like, I don't want to lead. I'm really good at talking on a microphone. I'm pretty good at writing books. Like, why would I want to sit in a call for 8 hours a day with people telling them how to write books and how to talk on microphones?
Yeah.
Like, that just sounds silly. It's just, I think you know your role and what you're good at. And I stayed there for a while, and it was great. The last few years at BiggerPockets were amazing. I got to do what I like doing. I didn't have to lead things. I wasn't even, like, I even left the board. I was on the board for a while. I left that. I'm like, I don't want to make decisions. I just like being on a microphone and writing books.
Was that, I'm getting personal now. Was that, can you give me a timetable here? Was that like, hey, I'm going to step away because you were doing other side gigs at that point? Or were you just like, no, I really genuinely, authentically am not built for that? Because that's that's an ego.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no to promotion.
Yeah. It is hard to say no to promotion, though. Like I don't know if this come out weird, and the current BiggerPockets leadership, like, they're amazing and they're better than me than I could ever be at those positions. But like, I still had the ego, like I still had the spiritual role of the leader of BiggerPockets, whether or not I was running the meetings, right? Like,
you're the face.
Yeah, sure. I was still the face of BiggerPockets, so I didn't have to have the title of CEO or whatever, in order to still be in charge.
Yeah, this is like
direction.
Yeah, unless you're. I really admire film directors, but unless you're like a absurdly good film director, the actor's the one
The
that gets the
actor's the one
credit.
that gets exactly, yeah, yeah. Who directed like Baywatch? I don't know, but who's the star of it? The Rock. Like it's just like the new Baywatch movie, The Rock.
No, I don't know the new
Rock,
Baywatch movie.
Zac Efron like ripping his shirt off. I don't know.
I watch highbrow movies. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, fine. Barbie. Who directed Barbie? I don't know.
Oh, that chick? No, she's blowing up.
Yeah, she is.
I
But I don't know her name. You don't know her name either.
No, I don't know her name.
Yeah.
But I don't know the name of the
Margot-
actress. Oh yeah,
Margot
Margot
Robbie.
Robbie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just put me in my place.
Well, you were right. You called it out. We don't know the directors. We know the actors. And
Unless
so-
it's like a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like the actors are, well, it's
Samuel
always Samuel
Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, I think this speaks to like a lot of people listening to the show are probably at a job right now and they're not sure if they should leave or not. I will say this: I didn't leave with no parachute. Like I built Open Door Capital for 3 years before leaving, or 2.5 years. So I knew it was coming at some point. So I started putting, again, I'm so anti-risk in every area of my life. It's just like I knew it eventually would be there, whether it would be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I didn't know. So I built up Open Door Capital and it started doing really well. If that wasn't going as well, I probably wouldn't have left right when I did. I would have probably started something else like the mortgage company or whatever. And then I would have waited till that got a little bit more well established. And that did two interesting things. One, it gave me a little bit of a financial cushion, which ended up not because I donate my salary away now. But I didn't have to. I do that. Okay, listen, like I don't want to like, look how great I am donating my salary. I mean, let's just call it for what it is.
Yeah,
It's
please.
marketing. It's largely marketing. And what I mean by that is it's a really good pitch to investors. And it's not dishonest. It's a true pitch.
Sure.
I don't make money until they make money. And I do that on purpose. And my team is constantly yelling at me for that. Like, just take a salary, just make money. Like, you need to pay bills. I'm like, it's more important that my investors know that I don't make money. So yes, I donated because I have to take a salary. At first I didn't take one, but then my CPA said I had to take one or I'd get audited. And so I took one, I just donated. But anyway, so yes, there's a lot of, I have a heart towards charity, yes. But it is, in that case, Open Door Capital is far more about making sure my investors know that I am 100% aligned. So it is a very strategic decision on my part to do that. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know why we were going there.
You were
but
talking about parachutes.
Parachute, yes. Okay. Oh, it's two things. One, the little bit of financial cushion, and two, men especially get their identity and their career really intertwined, right? Like I am BiggerPockets and BiggerPockets is me, and that there was a unraveling that has to happen anytime you leave a career. Like you and your identity are the same in a lot of what your career and your identity are the same. And so what we see happen all the time, you and I both have friends who have sold big companies or sold their business, and all of a sudden they're just lost for years. Like, what do I do?
Well, I see it in military.
In military,
Military's
huge. Yep.
so bad.
You're 100%.
If you're a listener and you're in the military,
Yeah.
and you need somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
like,
Dude, it's a
I'm
thing.
here.
Yeah, because your identity is military, career.
I mean, it's like
It's you.
Yeah, well, in the military specifically, it's like
And
you're a
they
hero.
Yeah, and they remove your identity.
Yeah, you're a hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Private, whatever your name
Yeah,
is.
yeah. They deliberately remove your identity and make your identity a group identity. And then when you lose that, it's terrible. So what I did is I built up a new identity before I left my previous one. So Open Door Capital became the new one. Then when I left BiggerPockets, I had a parachute. I had a tether.
You had a place to go.
Yeah, I had a place to go. And so I just watched, and there was never an identity. Like people ask me, like, was that really hard to leave after 10 years? I'm like, oh, not really. I just walked out that door and into this door. Like, it was actually really surprisingly easy because it was there for me versus just people I quit. Now I'm like, what do I do with my life? Actually, who told me that yesterday? They did that. They quit and they went into deep, dark depression, didn't know what to do with their life anymore for like a year because they didn't plan ahead of time. So
Yeah, very
ahead of
common.
time. Yeah.
That actually brings me to my last question before we go
Okay.
into the ending segments here.
Okay.
You seem to be either outwardly or maybe covertly trying to build a commune out here in Maui. Are you trying to get are you trying to you love living here.
I do.
And there's a big migration of real estate investors coming to Maui. Is this something you're trying to explicitly tell people? If you're a real estate investor who's listening and you want to come live in Maui, Brandon wants you to live next door.
I don't want you here. The locals get angry when people move out here.
But okay. Aside from logistics and costs, is that what would make Brandon Turner happiest?
No, but I do like people. I think that community is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Like your connection with other people, even for introverts, like it's just you need to have people around you. There's a great book by Dietrich Bonhoeffer called Life Together, and the idea is just like humans are meant to be together. in community. And so for years we didn't have that. And actually, I credit you for that. As you were like, hey, let's just make a text message group.
Oh, the Maui Cool Kids.
Yeah, the Maui Cool Kids.
Actually, I did it twice.
Yeah, it was good.
The Office.
Yeah, you're right. You did make it here.
Dude, let me tell you guys a story.
Okay.
This dude, Brandon Turner, the infallible Brandon Turner.
Infallible.
And I love calling you that. And Matt and Micah and who else? There was somebody else. And me. We are working full time in a 3-mile radius remotely.
Yep.
It was driving me absolutely insane. I was like, dude, we have to get a little 1,200 square foot place to work. And I give myself somewhere between 99 and 100% of the credit. But it's been great to be here now. Now we're recording this in the office. Yeah. Matt, Carson, and then within what felt like it was like a cocaine heartbeat. Next thing you know, Cameron's hanging out, Caleb, Matt, Francois. The place is full every day.
Yeah, I get no work done here whatsoever. It's like
you get a lot of work done today.
Yeah, I did get a lot of work done today. But we just get Nerf gun fights and
dude.
Yeah, whiteboard.
I'm a community builder.
Yeah, you are a community builder. I just like how intentional you were about it. Maybe it didn't feel intentional, but you were just like
super intentional.
Yeah, we're gonna build a community, and we call it a cult.
We do mandatory Mondays.
Yeah, which I haven't been yet.
You haven't been yet. Mandatory Mondays is a good idea for everybody listening. Mandatory Mondays is first, it's 100% voluntary. That's the most important part. That's some Alex marketing. I don't know why I do that kind of stuff. Mandatory Mondays is you show up at Monday. You check. I have a little app that checks me the time of golden hour. And so the idea is you have to be here on the dot before golden hour.
What's golden hour?
Golden hour is like 45 minutes, 30 minutes before sunrise. And it's when the light is like even, but there's no like harsh bulb of the sun yet. And so it's just really good for photographs. Everything's really gold. But the sun's not up yet. And so my idea is on Monday mornings, we show up. It's like 6 o'clock or something like that. We show up in the office. Everybody's here. And the idea is we kick the sun's ass to work on Monday morning. Like we beat the sun here. And then we just do, what are you grateful for? And what do you want to accomplish this week? And we just go around the room. We have a little cappuccino or a little espresso. And that's it. And it's just a way to, we're all here.
Sounds good.
Yeah. You're welcome to.
Maybe I'll come sometime.
You're welcome to join.
I will. I'll be here.
Okay, he won't.
On Monday.
I know you're awake. It's not that early.
I'm
you're
awake.
Always awake. Everybody in Maui wakes up at 5.
Yeah, everyone does.
All right, let's go to the wrap up. 3, 2, 1, pivot.
All right.
3 pivot books that changed your life. You were going one way.
Yeah.
And then you read this book and you're going another way.
Yeah. I'm going to give a couple. I mentioned a couple books earlier today, so I'll give a few different ones. In the real estate world, I read a book called Investing in Duplexes, Triplexes, and Fourplexes by Larry Loftus.
I own that one.
Do you really? Yeah.
I do.
That's an old book. I got it at the library. I loved it. I remember buying it after I got at the library. Just like, here's how to buy small multifamily. And that book was great. And then I went and bought a duplex right after that. So that changed my life that way and got me into multifamily. The ABCs of Real Estate Investing from Ken McElroy. I read that book and I was like, I'm going to buy an apartment complex. And the next day I'm at church and there's this old couple and they're like, what have you been up to? And I was like, I just read this great book about apartment complexes. I'm going to buy one. And they're like, huh, we have one we want to sell. And they sold me their apartment complex.
How big was it?
24 unit. That got me out of my job. That was
what the hey?
The last one. Yeah, it was super cool. And they did seller financing, no money down.
The universe is so good to you, dude.
It was so good, man. But here's what I tell people about that story. I think it's a good lesson. They weren't the only person I told. First of all, I read the book. And then I told probably 20 people that day about that book. I was so excited about it. And I tell everyone about what I'm trying to do in life. I'm telling everyone, I over communicate what I'm trying to do in life. How many times did I say today I'm going to give away $1 billion to fight human trafficking? I said it several times. We're going to grow the BetterLife Tribe to 10,000 members, paying an average of $500 a month. Like I'm telling everybody what I want, what I need, because then you put it out in the universe, and I don't mean that in a foo-foo way. You just put it out there, and then people are like, oh, hey, he's got what I want, or I want what he has, or whatever. Like people want to help. So yeah, I told a bunch of people that, and then that couple. Now, grant there was some dumb luck or providence, however you want to look at it, in there, but worked out. They sold me their property.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Exactly. Yeah.
Better lucky than good. All those little cliches.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, third book.
Okay. Third book. I'm looking at my list here. I think I'm going to give it to Brilliant Ideas I'll Never Act On from Alex Felice. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh man, you know what book? I think I'll give it to The One Thing. The One Thing from Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. When I read that book, It was the first book I'd ever in my entire life read, and then got to the last page and finished it, and then turned back to page 1 and just read it again.
Wow.
I ended up reading it like more than a dozen times the first year I read it. Like, it's just over and over. I just read it over and over and over. I'd listen to it Audible, and I'd walk around listening to it for a walk every day. I was trying to get a bunch of steps.
You just beat it into your skull.
Because I kept telling myself, like, if there's one book I can read, and if I follow just what that book says, everything else in my life will be easier and better. So I have to beat it into my head. So I just read it over and over and over and over. And that made I still to this day, like I'll peruse it and I'll look at it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where I got that thing from. And oh yeah, it just changed. I brainwashed myself by reading it over and over and over. I think brainwashing oneself is a super under talked about skill set.
I talk about that actually often. I love it.
Yeah.
You brainwash yourself with what's normal.
Yeah. People think brainwashing is bad. No, it's great.
It's great.
As long as it's not used for the wrong
You just got to have the benevolent dictator.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
I did this, my story, not to make it about me, but I was a grossly irresponsible alcoholic. But it was so bad, I didn't know that other people in the world weren't going blackout drunk 4 nights a week for years.
Yeah.
I was like, everybody is just having a party. We're just partying.
Yep.
Right? We're 29. We're just partying.
That's what we do.
And then it turns out that that's not yeah. So, but then what's interesting is then that was around 2013. I heard you, and I was like, oh, just BiggerPockets. I'm going to turn everybody else off, and then I buy a couple $1 million of real estate. I'm like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, you can totally brainwash yourself.
Totally brainwash yourself. Love that.
I did that. I wanted to be vegan for a while because I wanted to try it out, but I couldn't do it. So I just watched 2 vegan documentaries, and all of a sudden I was vegan. It lasted 6 months. I got off that because I didn't like it at all. But I brainwashed here's the funny thing. You know how I got myself off of it? I started watching Jordan Peterson.
All meat?
All meat stuff.
You just went the other way?
I just brainwashed myself the other way. Now I eat a ton of meat and steak. I choose what I want to try, and then I just brainwash myself into it.
I've been here a year. How come deadlifts haven't been brainwashed into your head yet?
Because I'm not convinced they're the answer.
Deadlifts are the answer to every problem. All right, we'll get you there. 2 pivot people. You can't say me.
It's funny, I've asked this question 100 times and I've never actually thought about the answer myself. I mean, cliche would be my parents. I love my parents. They're awesome and they directed me in a lot of ways. So I won't say that one because it's too cliche. There was a man, I don't know his name, when I worked at the bank, he did bank training, and we went to a training day at the bank. And I'm sitting there next to this friend of mine that worked at the bank, and we were just talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad and how we had just read it. And we were like, oh my gosh, this book's so good. And we were talking about cash flow quadrant, the game or whatever, the cash flow game. And the guy was like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And I said, oh, we're talking about, have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And he goes, oh, yeah, I read that a few years ago. And this guy said, his words were basically, there's some great stuff in that book. And if Robert Kiyosaki is listening, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit. But he goes, Robert Kiyosaki is an old man who will have basically nobody at his funeral. He said he missed out on a good life in exchange for money. And no, he didn't know Kiyosaki, and maybe, I don't know Kiyosaki either. But his point was, you can focus so strongly on building wealth and money and miss out on the things that actually matter: community, family, faith, whatever. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when he said that, because I was like, oh, you're right. Like, because I was so obsessed with money and wealth and getting financially free. That's all I talked about. And so that really shifted me in a different direction in terms of like, well, what does that mean like to live a better life holistically, which ironically led us to where we are today. So that would be number one. And number two, geez, this is a hard question. I'm glad I asked this question. To think back over my whole life. Give me a minute. I want to make it impactful. Yeah, okay. I'll go with Troy Hoppenrath. So Troy Hoppenrath, you know the name. You've met him. Troy Hoppenrath was my youth pastor in high school. But Troy was just...
Wait. Troy from Island Troy? I thought you just met him.
Yeah, no. So Troy was my youth pastor when I was in high school.
What the heck?
Yeah, and so he and his wife, Sandy, like they were just mentored me in a lot of ways and taught me a lot about being a Christian and not a weird Christian, if that makes sense. Like,
That makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. Like, there's a lot of weird Christians out there, and they were just like normal Christians. Like, they drank sometimes, and they had like fun, and they laughed, and they went on vacation, and they just were normal. Like, they were just a normal, good people. They loved Jesus, but they also just like to have a good life. Anyway, I remember like. Just when I think of like impact on my life and helping me become a better human in general, I'd say Troy probably made the biggest impact. And then, ironically, 20 years later, I needed a teacher for our kids, or just like a tutor to come help with our homeschooling. So we have like this little co-op of kids that come in my basement every day. And I was like, who'd be an amazing teacher? I'm like, Troy's wife, Sandy, she's a teacher. And so anyway, they moved out here to Maui for the year, and now they're in my basement teaching my kids.
That sounds worse. That sounds so bad. They're voluntarily in the very finished.
Yes, very finished, nice downstairs first level of my house in my schoolroom that we built. But yeah, Troy and Sandy out here in Maui now, so I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say somebody else.
You?
No.
You know, I can't not say Josh Dorkin.
That's all they. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, let's of course, Josh, from very many reasons, took me in when I didn't even know what a computer was, and made me his lead marketer and only employee at BiggerPockets. So
yeah,
go Josh.
Go Josh. Past, present, future. What is?
Wait, you skipped the quote.
Did I?
You did.
Oh my God! Look, it's my first day. It's my first day.
Oh,
I'm glad you're here, dude. I'm glad you're here.
Hey, we need to have our conversation about A players. You know, like there's exceptional people.
Ouch.
Okay.
Ouch.
Quote.
One pivot quote.
Yeah. Michael Jordan said, "Some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, and others make it happen." I've always loved that quote. I have it on a sign in my yard, over by the pool. Yeah, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, others make it happen. And it just reminds me over and over that all my goals and ambitions just don't matter at all unless I do the work.
Dude, you are a tremendous doer.
Thank you.
And I swear I probably am the toughest on you in your life. Is that true?
Probably.
Top two?
Top two.
Top two?
Josh is pretty hard on me.
Josh. Hard. I'm definitely the harshest on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I give credit where credit's due sometimes. You are a big doer. It's very impressive.
I don't feel like I am. That's why I feel like I have to hire people.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I mean,
I make them do the work.
When I wanted to go from single family to multifamily, and I started buying bigger apartment buildings, it was the most fascinating thing. I did bigger deals. I gave up bigger slices. I brought in more people.
Yep.
My life got easier.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. I have more properties, and now I have 60-something doors in North Carolina. I think zero about it.
Yeah.
People like talk about passive income doesn't exist. I'm like, dude, I have passive income. I have people in place that are so. If I could just throw them another 1,000 units, right, I'd be in a very, very good place in life. But it's so interesting because the more people because I have that taste. I've hired people or brought on partners that have made my life so easy. I'm like, you guys do all the things I don't want to do, and then all I have to do is the thing I do want to do.
Yeah.
So I take you guys.
It's magic.
It's magic. You guys take all the you take a big portion of the stress, a big portion of the risk, and then all I have to do is the thing I love. This is crazy. How is it so easy?
Yeah, so many people are against hiring and partnerships and all that, but I love to look at it this way. Let's just say you had a deal, like doesn't matter what the deal is, the real estate or otherwise, and you had 100% of it yourself, or you could divide it 5 ways, split it 5 ways, but do 5 times as much. The end result is you have the same amount, right? Like if you have 100% of one, or you have 20% of 5, it's still you have 1, right? So people look at that, especially newbies in real estate, are like, well, why would I partner with people and then get half as much? I have to do twice as much. It's the same thing. I might as well just do it myself. I'm like, oh, but you're only working then 1/5 as much. And you're working on the only 5th that you like doing and you're amazing at. And each of the other 5th people are doing what they're amazing at. So you don't do 5 times as much. You do 500 times as much. And that's the beauty of having a team and having good people. It's magic.
It's magic. I've only done it to a small degree. I'm getting better at it, and I plan to go even more. But I'm like, all my deals, all I have to do is talk to all my investors, which is not a light. This is a light load for me. I'm like, I could talk to people, find deals, do investor reports. Somebody else does the data entry. I just go over the financials and make money. Oh, we'll do some reports.
I can handle that.
Oh my God, this is great.
Yeah,
you
do all the stuff you love.
Who's paying the insurance and doing the asset management? I'm like, somebody else who loves it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I just worked out that system up for social media the other day. We've been talking about it, but like I like certain aspects of social media, very little. I like writing. I like recording a video. I don't like anything else that involves social media. So I finally built this whole plan. And I'm gonna have like 3 or 4 people in there editing and this and this and this. And all I have to do is write a little something in the morning and then record it once a week. And all of a sudden, my enjoyment of social media has gone up like tenfold. Because I'm like, oh, this is easy. This is my fun
Systems
stuff.
people.
Yeah. Systems.
Yeah, I call it the S word.
Yeah.
Systems. Past, present, future.
Okay.
Advice to your younger self.
Advice to my younger self.
Did I read the question right?
You did.
Yeah.
I just never think about these things.
Yeah, no, that's why I love this, actually. By the way, being on the other end of this for all year, I have an interesting perspective. I've been dwelling on all these questions, so it's fun to watch you now dwell on them.
Yeah, all right. When I was younger, I thought I should only read real estate books. I should have read business books. Things like Traction or Good to Great or 7 Habits. Like, I should have been reading those books more, in personal development books, Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant. I should have been focused on that. I thought it was like all foo-foo stuff, either foo-foo or like boring business stuff that I was not. I don't wear a suit.
Because you weren't a business guy, you were a real estate investor.
Exactly. I didn't realize that to be a great real estate investor, you have to be a great business person. So I should have read business books and realized that. It's not even about the books, it's about the identity. I should have changed my identity to I'm a business owner.
That's powerful.
And not a real estate investor.
Yeah. Real estate investing, I love it. It's so simple. It's the simplest, easiest, stupidest business model.
Yeah,
it's
compared
fixed
to
cost.
like trying to build better life, like this is hard.
Well, you have variable costs, you
Yeah.
have fluctuating costs, you have seasonal costs, you have real estate, I'm like, it's gonna make the same thing, except over time it's gonna make more.
It's going to make more. Yeah.
Right.
It's going to get better every year.
Fixed costs are
You do
basically
less
fixed
work.
costs. They'll go up with a lower rate. And if you have a debt service, it's basically, not always, generally fixed. It's like, you know what you're going to make day one.
Yeah.
There's no more brain power that has to go into this. Every other business in the world is like way more complicated.
It's way more complicated. Yeah. Real estate's simple. But you know what's easy to do is easy not to do. And that's why a lot of people just, like, they'll overcomplicate it. Like, it's got to be harder than this. I'm like, no, just make offers. Like, analyze deals.
Yeah, people have analysis paralysis for real estate. I'm just like, dude, buy something.
Yeah, just go buy something.
I remember when I was buying real estate back in 2014 or whatever, and I was broke. But I was on the MLS, and there's hundreds of deals right on the MLS for like 30 grand.
Yeah.
And I had like just enough to get my first one, and I'm making offers on properties, and I'm like, is this going to make money? And I was turning down deals that were $35,000 because I thought they should have been 32.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
And in retrospect, I'm just like,
say
yes to everything, idiot.
I know. I know.
Now they're all worth $250,000.
Yep.
What did you do? What is one thing you did this year that gave yourself a better life?
There's so much. I stopped drinking. That's definitely improved my life. Yeah, it's pretty much stopped drinking. I don't say relapse is probably the wrong word because I didn't really have a problem with it, but I just I had a friend offer me a glass of wine, so I took that, and then I hated it, and I felt like crap afterwards. But no, I stopped drinking. That's probably one thing. I didn't really drink a lot, but I drank pretty consistently. Just like in Maui, it's just like, hey, friends are over, let's have a drink.
You always seemed distraught by it.
I don't like anything that takes control. I don't like any bad habit in general, and so anything that's like, even like my phone, like I'm super obsessed with not using my phone because I know that it has a hold on me, and I'm like, I could feel it with a lot of things in life, like alcohol and phones. So I'm like, I fought against that. So that's pretty important. I made a commitment to Heather that I wouldn't leave her more than 12 days this year. That's a big thing. Like, I was gone so much last year traveling.
I am watching you like a hawk on this one.
Yeah, I have 12 days away, and so I've got a couple of them planned out where I've got like events that I'm going to go to that she doesn't want to go to. But what's great about that constraint? I love constraints. I'm a big fan of it. Like the constraint is like, I'm not going to do this, right? Because it forces you to prioritize what's actually needed and important. So when somebody's like, hey, can you come to this event or come to this thing out of town, or hey, we should go hang out for the weekend over here, I'm like, well, I only got 12 days. Like I only get 12 days. So now it's only the great things that get through, not just the, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And I'm really liking that constraint of only 12 days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to say about you when the beard is chopped off one day?
Who's that? No. Yeah, I would love to get to the end of my life, and man, the phrase my dad used to say to me when I was a little kid And it's an outdated phrase, an outdated word. We don't use it in our world anymore hardly at all. But he always used to say that his greatest wish for me was to be a righteous man. And I really like that idea of being like righteous, meaning like he chooses the right. I don't even know the official definition, but the way I see it is like he chooses the right option, even if it's the hard option, and the not easy path. And he chose what's right over what's easy. So that'd be a good legacy to have, is people to be like, yeah, he always chose to do what was right.
That's powerful. What are you excited about coming up? Sell me all your stuff.
Man,
I watched you start 4 businesses this year.
Yeah. I'm going on a Grand Canyon four-wheeler trip thingy.
What?
Yeah, you don't know about this.
Is this with our friend up on
Becky, yeah.
Becky, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, with my daughter, so Rosie.
Oh, it's daddy, daughter?
Daughter, camping, adventure, Grand Canyon, 300-mile trip.
Do you need a videographer?
Yeah, they have one. Yeah, it's like all your meals are prepped and cooked. It's like they said it's like the 4 seasons of outdoor adventure. So,
dude, I would love to be in a room with you and Bethke like a weekend. I'm like, whose personality is gonna overshadow the other? That's a lot of.
He's gonna be so fun. I love that dude.
Yeah, I love that dude. He's a high wired. I tried to be his friend. He really did not want that to happen. It's like him and there's like 2 people in my life that I try to be friends with, like ever. 2 people that I'm like, I want to be friends with that person, and they were really not having it. And
I think you just got to force your way into people, like, because he's a famous guy.
Oh,
you're forcing your way.
He's not famous to me, so maybe that's why I'm just like, yeah, I'm good at forcing, but I really forced and got.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I didn't force that much with him, but
you got to do more.
All right.
It's like, have you heard the group dating thing, the tactic? Well, you do, like, if you want, let's say you want to get married before you had Miss Kate. So you have a bunch of friends, including the one that you're interested in. There's like 12 of you. And it says you and the 11 others. You hang out. And then next week, you just don't invite one of the people now there's only you and 10 people, including Miss Kate or whoever the person was, right? And the next week, you invite one less person. And you keep doing that until you're married with 3 kids. That makes sense?
No, that does not make any sense. What?
You start with like group dating.
So wait, let me get this
and
straight.
You slowly eliminate people.
Okay.
Until before, like, it's
you
like
started
the frog
dating
in the
Heather
water.
at 20. Is that right? We can tell.
Yes.
We can tell that you did not go through the gauntlet of. I met Miss Kate at 36.
No, it's the frog in the boiling water. You just slowly get rid of people in your friend group until it's just you and her, and then before you know it, you're married.
Let me tell you something.
That's how it works, man.
Okay, I just want to.
The same thing works.
I just want to tell you how dating works.
12 people.
Here's what's gonna happen. I go on Tinder.
Yeah.
I reach out to these 12 supposed women. I get rejected by 12.
It is a numbers game.
Yeah. So what I have to do is I have to ask 1,200.
Yes.
And then 12 will show up.
Yep. It's a funnel.
And then they're also
everything's a funnel.
Yeah. Everything's a funnel. Where can people find you? Besides on your podcast.
You've taken over. Where can people find me? I am everywhere. Beardy Brandon on Instagram. Join my text message newsletter at beardybrandon.com. I send out a text message newsletter every week with whatever book I'm reading and what I'm learning from it, plus other stuff. That's it.
That's it.
And everywhere else. Just Google me.
Instagram.
But I'm not the skateboarder Brandon Turner.
No.
Though we look identical.
You're the cool one.
I'm the cool one.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.